All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's edition of Live from the Living Room. This is Molly Ruland joining you from my living room. I am here today with two amazing guests. I'm really excited to introduce them and have this conversation today. It's Friday, whatever that means in the apocalypse. I'm not too sure, but I'm definitely going to drink some wine tonight after the week we've had. Ready for tomorrow morning's online podcast class. If you're looking to start a podcast and you have some extra time on your hands, I am teaching an online class tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. and there is still some room. Without further ado, let me bring in my two guests so they can introduce themselves. So we're going to go ahead and start with Miss Katie Nelson. How you doing, Miss Katie?
Hey, girl, hey.
Hey, so can you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Sure. I am Katie Nelson, the CEO of Sales Uprising. It is my own company, and I'm a sales catalyst and I'm a business coach. So I help small businesses get to 6 figures in revenue and then 6 figures in profit as fast as possible.
Amazing. So we definitely have a lot to talk to you today about in regards to everything going on right now. So thank you for joining us on the show. All right. And next up is I always just call you Z because I'm a terrible person, but can you please introduce yourself?
Yes. And my name has a lot of syllables too. So my name is
It sure does.
Zsudayka Terrell. And I am an artist. I run a company called Terrell Arts DC. And so I produce merchandise and events and do workshops with people about gardening and homeschool and art and all things of that nature.
That's right. You're just basically a superwoman, is what you're saying to me.
Well, every day except Sunday. No.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you both for joining me today. I really appreciate it. You're both two of my favorite people, to be honest, for different reasons, but there's actually like a lot of similarities here. You know, we're all very heavily into branding and self-employed and just creating opportunities. And I've just, really been impressed with both of you since I've known you. And so I love the randomness of this conversation, the pairings of it anyway. And I thought, today's a great day. It's Friday. I got two of my favorite women on the show. And so, yeah, man. So how are you guys feeling today?
Today's a good day.
Yeah.
Today's a good day. It hasn't always been that way over the course of the past couple of weeks, but today's a great day. One, I'm on here with you. I get to meet some new people, some new highly inspiring humans, which always just makes me really excited. And it's Friday, and I'm always about celebrating a Friday.
Hell yeah. Even in a pandemic.
Yes,
sure.
maybe especially.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a good day today too. I've been out in the garden all day, building my garden beds and getting ready for the growing season. And so that's very therapeutic and a good thing to be able to do when you're stuck in the house. So
for sure. I'm going to talk to my roommate this weekend because I think he will be home and see if we can get started on some stuff in our backyard and garden too, because it's a good way to get back to a little bit of, normal life, whatever that means, for sure.
yes.
We also talk about how if you go and, you walk in your grass or the ground, or you put your hands in the ground and touch the dirt, it like helps you get centered, right? I am sure that Z has had this experience, but I love it.
Yeah, me too. Even just doing a little weeding in the front yard has been a nice break and getting some sunshine and all of the things that are necessary for life. So I'm really curious, Z, how you are managing. So, a little bit of background, you home birth two of your children, you're homeschooling all three of your children. And I know I've seen your comments on Facebook and you're like, listen, it's not easy because we do a lot of field trips and we can't do those right now. So how are you maintaining all of this with your business life as well, right? I'm sure there's some struggles with the supply chain and everything else right now. How are you kind of navigating all of this stuff?
Oh, yes, it has definitely been a journey, and I have learned a lot. Typically, during this time of year, I am vending every weekend, and we are like
Mm,
in kind of emergency mode because we're looking at all of vending season being closed at this point or not having high attendance. And we have a big art opening in July. And so thinking about like, is it now socially appropriate to like try to get a big crowd to come to your art opening? Like, what is the world about to be like in a couple of months? And so that has probably been the most intense part of trying to figure out how to navigate these last couple of weeks, on top of being stuck in the house with three small children. Um, I am lucky because my husband's a teacher, so he is home, and that's actually afforded me the opportunity to work more and more consistently in the studio. So, I'm
mm.
meditating on just making brilliant work during this time while I could spend 8 hours just working, and haven't done that in about 10 years. So,
That's amazing for sure. I hadn't really thought about that aspect of getting some more time to be able to create, because you are always, always creating. And I know you've mentioned on Facebook and stuff that some of your products, might not be available because you're waiting on things to be shipped in and stuff. Are any of
yes.
those products that could be like made locally? Because I'm really interested in this idea of collaboration with people who are local, right? Like my mom in particular sews, and she has like enough fabric to like clothe an entire army of people. I mean, it's insane how much fabric she has. And so I can't help but wonder, like, maybe is it time to learn how to sew t-shirts, right? Like if you're stuck without getting your orders in, like what does that look like for you right now?
Well, right now, it's funny our timing. In the last year or so, we have been a big drop shipping company. A large part of our
Mm,
total income is just, we have been shipping um, out merchandise. And so about a year or two ago, I was looking for a printer to do a specific project and couldn't really find anybody, and was like, I need to start a printing company. And just thinking about what is going to be a sustainable business model, because opening a gallery, like many galleries are closing right now. And so, you have to think about, if I
mm-hmm.
have this big building, how am I going to make this building last no matter what happens? I was like, ding, ding, shop in the back, because there's always going to be a need for printing. There's always, even making staff t-shirts, hospital t-shirts. So literally a month ago, I had just
Mm-hmm.
gotten my first printer sets in. And so now I'm able to I'm able to do a lot of things from home, and that saved us because, a lot of the companies and the different printing companies at this point are having to close because, it's mandatory.
Right.
It's not an essential job. And so right now, the main things that are on delay are some of our clothing sets, which are an all over print, and it requires a specific type of printer.
Right.
And so, it's
Sublimation.
like, yes. And so it's leggings and and we had just debuted them to like our Komodo
Yeah.
robes and different things, like, and a couple of those opens back up. And I had just placed all the orders and then got an email a couple of hours later, and they were like, oh, we have to close. But people have been very understanding. They know they're going to get, the things that are supposed to ship out for them from those places. And so I think that that's really been a blessing. But we're still able to get items that are coming directly from shops. So I'm still able to take cup orders. I'm still able to do t-shirts. So as long as UPS and FedEx is running, there are some small things I can do, which is a godsend. And just good for
Right
sanity's
on.
sake too.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, who knew? Well, maybe the president. Just
Right.
kidding. But details, details.
Months
But
ago.
I mean, who would have thought like this would be happening? I love how you're always on brand Z. You're like you're wearing your clothes and all your pictures. You're
Oh
drinking out of
yeah,
your
like
own mug.
right.
You're killing it. I love it. I absolutely love it. All right. And how about you, Katie? I know that you do a lot of work with sales, and like how's your business right now? Like, are you finding an uptick, or are you having to pivot? You know, where are you at right now?
From a services-based place, right? So coaching luckily can happen virtually. So online, we all had Zoom accounts before. I'm known as the local live and lucrative coach. So for me, it's been a little interesting. The pivot is real.
Yeah,
It was in the business plan to do it anyway, and now we just have time to actually focus on it and implement it faster.
for
Um,
sure.
for my clients, we're all in the same boat, like literally, right? Like everybody jumped off the Titanic and we're literally all in the same boats. So it's
Totally.
building the bike while you're driving it or riding it, as they say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, luckily, we have the tools. I mean, look, if this had to happen, and I'm not saying it had to, but if it was going to, or if it was written in the stars, or whatever the case is, now is a pretty amazing time to have this happen. I've got friends, so many friends, and so much family that are like, oh my gosh, the seniors in high school, they're missing their friends and their celebrations and all of these things. And I'm like, are you kidding? If it had been when we were seniors, like, I think the party line only went to two people. So,
Right.
we wouldn't even have been able to see each other's faces. Um,
Right.
it's an amazing, it is not what any of us wanted, and it is not comfortable by any means, like comfortable on a daily basis. I'm not comfortable. But it is an amazing time to have this happen. And over the course of the next decades, it's going to be really interesting to see how even our most basic interactions occur now.
Totally. Totally. I agree. I mean, it's just I want to try to avoid being too repetitive from the things I've said in the last couple of days already, but I think this is like, don't get me wrong, not great, but I think we waste way too much time traveling. I haven't understood for years why rush hour exists. Why does rush hour exist? That's insane. Who thought it was a good idea for everybody to go to work at the same time?
That's hysterical. I've
It's
never thought about
completely
that.
illogical. You should start work at 8, 9, 10, or 11 a.m. depending on which employee you are. It doesn't make any damn sense. If you're throwing a festival, like when they do wine festivals out in Virginia and there's busloads of people coming, they don't make the buses all show up at the same time because you can't get 30,000 people through a gate in an hour, but you can get 30,000 people through a gate in 3 hours. You know what I mean? So like, I think like this has been long overdue. With my staff, I've always allowed them to work remotely whenever possible. I told them, don't come in if we don't have anything going on. I don't want to burn their energy out on like driving and being stressed out, or being on the metro, or riding the X2 and having somebody stab them, right? Like, why add all of these? I'm just saying, that's
Right.
super real.
That's what it looks like here, right? Well, and
I
that's the
mean,
thing, right? I
yeah,
think that this gives us a time to
Yeah.
breathe, both personally, right?
totally.
After like the initial crazy, like after the initial, holy crap, do I have everything? It wasn't until 3 weeks in that my husband and I even did an inventory of our Band-Aids or our soap.
Right.
And so after that initial thing, it is about like, okay, so let's recenter. I think it's been a really long time since like the world as a whole has had the opportunity to get recentered. We are
Totally.
constantly inundated with technology and information, opinions, ideas, and what a beautiful thing wrapped up in a horrible, horrible thing that we get to take
Right.
advantage of if we choose to do so.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
absolutely
Yeah.
agree. And one thing that I find really ironic is that a lot of our customers are online from 9 to 5 anyway. And so it's just like your average workday productivity time is probably 2 hours max. And people really should have the opportunity to spend that 2 hours as productively as possible. Want to do is talk and argue with people and interact with all these different people from around the
Right.
world all day.
Exactly. Yeah. Speaking of which, I am so grateful for your group because it brings me so much comic relief, like all of the time. It is my favorite thing on the planet, seriously. Because if you can't laugh, right? You just have to laugh. Like that Britney Spears meme that I posted the other day. That's like, my loneliness is saving me. Like that
Yes.
is still funny to me. And I'm not a Britney Spears fan, but that shit is funny. Like,
First time you've listened to her song on repeat, huh, Molly?
yeah, pretty much. I'm like, oh, I know these lyrics. Let me get in there. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, how the world pivots. I've been talking to, friends of mine are in Detroit. And so I met them, I guess, like 6 years ago or something. I don't even know, 5 years ago. I don't know how long it's been. But when I had the graffiti bus, when I had the big One Love bus, and I was driving around the country, and I made some friends in Detroit, and I've been friends with them ever since. Shout out to the Bikes and Murder crew. But, we were talking to them about, a couple years ago, I was like, yo, you guys should start a manufacturing plant. You have all this industrial space in Detroit. Like, you could get a warehouse in Detroit way cheaper than you can get a warehouse someplace else. And like, why not manufacture t-shirts? Like, be a company that manufactures black t-shirts, right? Like, do you know how many millions of black t-shirts, plain black t-shirts, are bought every single day in this country from some supplier in China? Or from some child labor camp in wherever. I mean, if you really knew how our clothing was made, right, you might not want to wear it anymore. I mean, it's just really, really bad. And so why not bring some of this manufacturing back into the United States? Like, why are we buying I mean, the amount of, black and white t-shirts that are bought every single day. I mean, it's just like Z was saying, as far as the, every school, every employer, coaches, like whoever, everybody needs t-shirts. And so I think it's time to kind of bring some of that back in and not be so reliant, because I think we're getting
We need
squeezed.
the employees need it, right? Or will
100%.
after this. So it's going to be one of the things that Z said that I really appreciated is that she has more time to be creative.
Right.
And as a CEO, it's the most important job you have.
Totally.
Which is you'll never see it on someone's agenda, right? When you take a look at your calendar for the day, where does it say go be creative? This is time that we have to be really strategic with. It's our most strategically planned time, and it's the most necessary. And now we have an overabundance of it.
Yeah.
And it's what we're not talking about is the fact that it's going to be gone. Just like everything is that it's a precious resource, this time that we have.
It is.
I think that we spend a lot of time talking about how did we get here and all of this stuff. And I don't know how we got here. I'm not the person who's going to be able to make that call. But what I know is that I don't want to waste this precious time worrying about that and like using it towards how can we collaborate? What can we do? How can we be better? What does it look like when I can leave my house and actually go to any function with more than 10 people? And how are we going to relate to each other? Are we going to be a community that hugs again? I had a bad day this week. I'm missing hugs. So I will too. But what are the new norms? What is going to come out of this? It's really exciting. And I think right now more than ever, we have the ability to actually decide what that's going to look like instead of be a victim to what it's going to look like, for lack of a better word.
For sure.
We can inform the decision. Like, what do we want it to look like, right? So one of Molly's ideas would be have your employees go to work at 8, 9, 10, or 11 so that there is no rush hour. Now, if that's the case, what do we do with all of the civil transportation engineers who actually work on rush hour traffic all of the time? Where do we put their time and energy, right? Everything in our world has a domino effect.
Right.
If we open up the manufacturing plants in Detroit, highly recommended. What a great thing to do. Put some life, and I'm sure Pennsylvania, right, could also use this type of thing. What would it look like? You would have employed communities. You would have people going back to work. You would have money coming back into your hometown.
For sure. I mean, Detroit is already like all the like the city bikes, those like rental bikes that are in it's literally the same bike, but they're different colors in different cities. They manufacture those in Detroit, which is interesting because it came, was such a car community, right? And now it's, went from Motor City to Pedal City. but it's employed a lot of people because, in particular, Detroit is, it's right there on the Five Lakes. There's all kinds of transportation lines. I mean, that's why, Ford operated his plants there, because it was a great place to distribute all of those products, and make it happen. So it'll be interesting to see, I was saying, Z, to my friends in Detroit, even a couple years ago, that they should manufacture T-shirts. Like, just make black T-shirts.
Yes.
Like, think about how many millions of black
Yes.
T-shirts are sold every day in this country. Just black and white T-shirts. Come up with a basic ass pattern. Hire like returning citizens and people with records and whoever. And how easy would that be? Like, get a room, fill it with a bunch of sewing machines,
Yes.
have a pattern, and keep it moving. Like, why aren't we
Get the
doing
people
this
doing it.
already? Like, why are we outsourcing so many things in the first place? I think this is going to be a really great return to that. I'm hopeful anyway.
Yes. That was one of the things that we were really thinking about too, in terms of getting the machines is, it enables us to print for other people as well. And so, I have all these artist friends and all these artist peers that are always like, how do you make money and be an artist? And how are you paying bills and being an artist? And, I'm telling them, diversify what you sell, diversify what you sell. But now we're in a position where we can really structure what that actually looks like. And so that investment into community is incredible. And I'm also very excited to see how this shift in the world identity is going to impact that.
Me too.
I think that our ideas of what's valuable, right? So when we talk about selling, we always talk about, well, not when everybody talks about when selling. When I talk about selling, being able to show your value is really important. Right? Your value offering, what do I offer to the world and why is it important and how could it change something for someone? I think what we consider to be valuable will change. So the entire conversation around that, how we sell in our businesses, what does that look like, has the opportunity to change for the better, right? How we feel about what that is. It's a really amazing thing. And to your point, Molly, how much do we value being able to buy something that's made in the USA?
Well, right now it's all boiling down to price points, right? Like, I'm guilty of it. I go to Rainbow, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't even want to know how much like blood and children's tears are shed in order for me to wear my $4 shirt, right? But there's a convenience factor. And so I know, like, when I was, I still have my T-shirt line and stuff, but it's like, for me to buy shirts that are made in America, the price point's like $2 or $3 higher, and there goes my entire margin. Like, people think you're making so much money on these shirts, and you're not. Like, unless you're using Gildan shirts that like you could basically build a house out of because they're so uncomfortable, But if you want next level,
those will survive the apocalypse.
Literally, you could like put that on your garden to prevent weeds from growing up through them, right? Like, instead of tarp. Like, Gildan is no joke. They make great sweatshirts and terrible shirts,
And bike shorts. I remember them for like that bike shorts material.
Right, exactly. And so, so that's always been the big thing, is like, are people willing to pay $25 a shirt? Are people willing to pay, because that's how much it's going to cost to buy the made in America thing. So then it just gets out. I mean, I did a couple times, like, we made custom shirts for when the Caps won, with like all caps, no cap on the back. That's what the cool kids say. And then on the front, it was like a One Love massive flip with the Capitals thing. And we like printed a bunch, and we walked down to where like all the parade was, and we tried to sell them, and people were like, I'll give you $5. And I was like, dude, the shirt cost me $9. Like, I can't. Like,
okay, so
that was just the shirt. Never mind the printing and everything else. Like, that's not a real
the
thing,
labor,
man.
the ink.
Right, but this is where none of which your customer cares about, right? Nor should they have to care about. Like, that's not their job. That's not their responsibility. That is not their problem. What it costs us to do whatever it is that we do, right? So it does come down to, and Molly, this is like your, marketing. It comes down to marketing. Right?
On some level, no, not on the street. No, not on the street. Marketing doesn't mean shit on the street. When you got dudes 2-3 deep selling $5 shirts, and you got $15 shirts, they look at you like the enemy, and you're like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to do with that.
I think that a lot of the key is knowing where you are and who you're talking to. And that's something
Mm-hmm.
that we ran into as artists as well, is that we have paintings that are $10,000 that hang
Right.
in high-end galleries. And if we take that painting to a street art festival, it devalues the work. And
Mm-hmm.
so really thinking about, well, I can have this conversation about buying this $10,000 painting with somebody in an appropriate setting versus, when I'm on the street,
Right.
people want to spend $10 and keep it moving. And so, I
Right.
think as business owners, that challenge for us even now is going to be thinking about, especially as we're not having contact with people,
Mm-hmm.
not to nick and dime people to death, but how am I going to have a quick interaction with you and you're going to send that bucks and keep it moving? Because, that's kind of where we are now.
So it depends on your
Exactly.
target, is what you're talking about, right? It depends on your
Right.
target. The buyer
Yes.
for your $10,000 painting is not going to be the buyer that may be at a street festival looking to pick up a $100 piece of art,
For
right? That's
sure.
going to be a
Yes.
different audience.
And we tell people all the time too, like even if we're doing a festival, for example, because people are always like, no, you have everything there. You never know who you meet. Well, we represent our brand as a high-end brand. People who
Mm-hmm.
are interested are going to follow up because they're interested in the higher level page. You don't miss a sale or an interaction because you have something that's maybe cheaper or more
Right.
affordable when you're having that style of conversation with people. And, I think that that's something that a lot of artists, and not even just artists, but a lot of business owners really battle with is, how do you sell your items in different tier markets?
For sure. I mean, I can say with One Love Massive, it was always difficult because we did everything for free. Like we didn't charge an artist a dime in 18, 19 years, right? Which most people don't realize. So we never, like I didn't start One Love Massive in order to take money from artists. I started One Love Massive to support artists, hyper local, but that was always just an uphill battle. So with Heartcast, I'm like, no, I produce content for businesses, brands, nonprofits, and government agencies. Like if you got a cat podcast about mint and cat sweaters, that's cool, but you can't afford me. And if I tell you my prices, you're going to actually be offended and accuse me of being a bad person. Where if I take those services to the Department of Health, they're like, that's a steal. We want 10 of them. Right. So it 100% is, when it comes down to, high level selling. Yes. But I think when it comes to like the overall public's mentality of things, I think people that are willing to pay more also understand the value of things more. And then the general public has just been really spoiled by all this fast fashion and, well, Rainbow can sell me a shirt for $6. How come you can't? Because I'm not Rainbow, dude. You know what I mean? Like first and foremost, like that's it. Right. So I think that whole shift is going to change because even just everything right now on Amazon and in the grocery stores is more expensive.
Well, then
Right.
even look at the changes that had to be made at Amazon, right? Amazon didn't used to really pay attention to who used to buy bulk amounts of things for resale.
Right.
But have a run on toilet paper or hand sanitizer, and you better believe they put the kibosh on that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Of course, trying to come out, no offense, Amazon, trying to come out smelling like roses, but it does beg the question, so why did it happen before?
Right.
So, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be those types of things that big, huge corporations are going to have to take a look at because, for goodness sake, it's all under the public eye now. I mean, what are we doing for 24 hours? We're scrolling online. We're taking a look at everything. We're watching everything you're doing. I heard the term today, Mother Google. She sees you when you're sleeping and she sees you when you're awake, right? So, and that made me scared and laugh all at the same time. So you better be doing the right thing. The idea of the right thing, I think, is going to end up having a renaissance.
Yeah.
Selling the right way, doing the right thing right now. And I want to make a really quick point because I read something on Facebook today about language. And, for anybody who's my friend, Molly, you know this, I love language. It is just such a beautiful thing, and how we use it can be so very powerful. And so I personally am not social distancing. I'm choosing to physically be distanced, but I'm still socially connecting.
Yeah.
And I think that that's massively important.
Mm-hmm.
That we even start thinking of it differently if we're going to have any kind of hope to stay positive in this time, so that we can get to the creative ideas that are going to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I love that. I absolutely love that. It's, I was reading an article on Facebook a couple of months ago, and they were talking about how in the world now, most people's best friend, they identify somebody who they've never met before because they're sitting online talking to people and you build these connections with people. I think me and my best friend probably get together once or twice a year. We live in different cities. My two best
Right.
one lives in a different state, one lives in a different city, but we talk all day, every day, and we're seeing what each other's doing, what our posts are. And so it was re-examining the idea of what is friendship and what is connection and what
Mm-hmm.
is socializing and what do those things require. And I think that we're seeing the whole world kind of realizing that and catching up with how our relationships have been for probably about a decade now.
Right. Just
Yeah.
catching up with the realizations, right? Catching up with the realizations of, I really have no idea what my kids do all day in school. I have no idea what they're learning. And now they're here, right? Realizations of all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate to mention, but I was talking to some friends of mine, and I really had this question, like, what if you're not having a good partnership right now, but that's the house that you live in?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mhm.
or maybe you thought you were, but it turns out you're not, right? Like, our lives have a lot of hidden nooks and crannies in them that will become apparent, I think. Not mine, of course. I drink wine online every night. No, I'm joking. But like, that's the thing. I want to know what it's going to be like, and I'm hoping that things like positivity and continual connection. I think it's lovely that your best friends are far away. Remember pen pals? Remember
Oh my
that?
God.
Like,
Yeah, and exchange students.
exchange students, right?
They would
You
send
always
some
loved
kid
getting
from
that
Panama to
airmail
come live with
envelope.
you.
Yeah.
Those were some of the best things ever. One of my friends, Elaine Gibson, renewedliving.com, shout out to Elaine, will talk about how some of her best friends were created at camp,
Right.
maybe we'll say 4 decades ago, Elaine, just because I love you. But yeah, so, and that wasn't in her hometown. You go
Right.
away to camp and you make these friends and have that kind of connection. And I hope there's that renaissance, like I love technology. I'm not necessarily good at it, but I love what it affords us the ability to do. But what
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping this does is remind us that we still need the human piece.
For sure. Well, I hope that now we focus more of our time like working digitally and being smarter digitally, because I don't mind driving an hour to go hang out with my friend as long as I didn't have to spend 2 hours driving to get to work and get home. Because then when I get home, I'm like, boo, I ain't going nowhere. Like, I am tapped. I'm done. I just want to like take my shoes off and chill. But if we were actually working from home and a lot more efficient and not wasting so much time, then and got off at 4 or 5 o'clock, whatever that is, right? Then it would be so much more enjoyable to go travel to see your friends or drive to Virginia to have dinner with you if I haven't just worked 10 hours, right? Because it's like I actually have the bandwidth to do that now because I didn't burn all this energy up for my employer, who at the end of the day really doesn't give a shit about me, right? Like,
I've met your employer, Molly, and I
yeah,
think that's true.
he's a real ball breaker, let me tell you.
So you're talking about the prioritization of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm,
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And
I think so.
if we're talking about, if we're also talking about, because I do think there's something to be said for, at this time and place, we do have to enjoy capitalism. If we have a hope of getting out of an economic crisis, we are going to have to spend money again, right? And so
Oh
how do
yes.
we, and we've 3 business owners are on this line, so let's hope that people stay capitalistic and want to buy things. I mean, hello, right? So how do you, the
Open for
age-old,
business.
right? Age-old question of how do you prioritize humanity and still make a profit?
Well, yeah, and I mean, this
Yes.
brings up like a conversation we've been having a lot, in these groups about, how are you marketing now? I brought this up the other day, but I was shamed. I don't know if you saw this,
Oh, I don't
Z,
want to talk about that. That made me
but
mad.
Yes.
But like, this woman was like, how dare
Yeah.
you? And like, you should donate your time. And I'm a nurse and you should do something more philanthropic. And I'm like, yeah, but you're getting paid to go nurse. Like, I have 7 employees. Like, the world still goes on. Like, what am I going to ask my employees to volunteer their time and do business as usual? Like, if I'm doing things, it requires my staff and they need to get paid. And so this idea of like, where, what do you market now? How do you market? Like, have you changed your messaging? Are you changing your prices, right?
Have
Like,
you changed your why?
well, I mean, I don't,
Don't you
simmer
dare.
down, biscuit,
The
simmer
answer
down.
is don't you dare.
No,
Yeah.
no, but the question begets like, do you change your prices right now? Like, I changed my price. I was compelled to do
Right.
so, but I also sold 11 tickets to my thing tomorrow morning, which is the most I've ever sold before. And it was still money coming in because I, usually cap it at 4 people in the studio. So I physically couldn't do more than that. But like, I made the same amount of money I would teaching on a Saturday afternoon in my studio. And so is it a loss or does that ensure that I can keep a staff member on another week, right? Like for me,
Yes.
trying to meet people where they are, but without completely devaluing myself. And that's a hard line to toe, right? Like, what does that even look like?
Oh, yeah. We were having a discussion on my Facebook page yesterday about how we support, especially small businesses and local businesses. And one of my friends was sharing that she went ahead and paid her and paid her hair because that's an expense. She said she her check anyway. That's an expense
Right.
that she would have paid for anyway. And she
Right.
recognizes that that business owner is counting on that, $65 or whatever it is to
Mm-hmm.
feed her family and pay her bills. And so it's we've gotten a little bit of pushback too from some people who are just like, how are you advertising at this time? How are you guys debuting products? What are you doing? And it's just like, listen, some people are still getting their checks and we count on them. We have children we have to feed. We have
Right.
mortgages that we have to pay. Once this is passed and all of the forgiveness has passed, we still have to be able to function, and that
Mm-hmm.
requires us continuing to buy from one another and to support one another and put money into what one another does. As well as, one of my told me that, when you're doing workshops, things like that, make people pay for it, no matter what, because people
100%.
who invest in themselves are going to follow through. They're going to come, they're going
They're
to
I
going
like
take
to
the
that.
make the
information,
best
they want the
clients.
information.
They
Yes.
care. They
And
want
they'll
it,
find that
right?
money.
And look at Payless Shoe Source. Wah, wah. Home of the BOGO, buy one, get one, right? I appreciate the marketing technique to clear out a shoe store, right? For a new season of shoes or whatever the case
Right.
is. But at the end of the day, they did communicate the value of those shoes. You knew that second pair of shoes you were going to get is probably only going to be good for certain occasions or for 5 wears, right? Because they were a free pair of shoes. So I don't know. I think 100% I agree with your old mentor. It's what I preach. Free is more of from a true offerings perspective. You can, of course, look at Molly, right? So every day she comes on live at 2 p.m. or close to and does a live of a really interesting, hopefully, conversation between disparate people that may or may not know each other about what's going on right now. You're going to get I've listened to every one of them. You're going to get amazing content incidentally throughout those conversations.
Right.
Nobody's looking to put a price on these conversations.
Right.
Right? You can have all of this for free as much as you want.
For sure.
And happily so.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I had to put my hands on a thing, I did have to put in my blood, sweat, and tears. These are the things that I put forward so that I can pay my employees or even my rent. Like, we should be allowed to do that too.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And not everybody's
Without having
situation
to feel
changed.
guilty.
Right. Not
Yes.
everybody's situation changed. People in this country are still making money.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't happen to be you right now and you're mad that I'm still selling things, I hope that you'll look me back up when you're in a place where you can afford what I can do, or we can talk about it later. Right. Or if it's what you need now, then let's have a conversation about it. But don't beat me black and blue because I also need to make a living.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And yeah, I think there's a difference between pivoting like your services and your offerings and dropping your price, right? Because some stuff needs to change a little bit just because of the limitations that we now have, right? Some of my clients are still recording with me and we're just doing it remote, but we're doing a better job than they could do on their own. And we're making it look and sound the
Mm-hmm.
best that it possibly can for remote. And they're rolling with the punches and they're stoked to be still working with us, and it's great, right? So now I have to market to a whole new audience to say, hey, like, do you have a podcast? Do you want to start a podcast? Like, don't be shy, we can still do this, we'll take care. Everything still is the same except you're just not physically traveling. So kind of figuring out
Right.
like the messaging for that and what that looks like and what the price point is. It's a lot.
I'll tell you, Molly, all of my.
One of the things.
Oh, go ahead, Z.
One of the things that we've been trying to communicate to customers as well is that it's hard to ask a business to drop prices when their production costs are going up, especially as a result of not being able to get shipments from certain places. Like I want to not have my t-shirts cost X amount, but at the end of the day, if they went up $2, I too have to go up $2. If the
Right.
shipping goes up $5, I too have to go up $5. And so I think that there's sometimes where small businesses are kind of accused of, over advertising and kind of price gouging. And it's like, no, that's not even what I'm trying to do at all. I'm trying to make sure I can still get this shipment in. And in order to do that, I have to raise these things. I have to add these elements. I have to, contemplate these things and shift my audience. Maybe you were somebody who I was previously marketing to and now you're not. And that's okay.
Right.
It is okay. It is also our job, I think, as CEOs to get as creative as possible, right? Because we're not looking to, communicate anything differently. We still want to be able to serve our people, whoever those people may be at that given point in time. So if my cost of shirts goes up, what can I do to elongate the hit of that? If you buy more, can I keep your price the same, right? So having to take a look at, I'm not very good at math, even though I've been in sales for 30 years. But what I will tell you is I call that the fun math. That's like where you can figure out the beautiful happy place, the win-win place for both the business owner and the customer. And that's up to us. The customer's not going to know that. I mean, we don't, it's not an open kimono scenario where they understand all of our cost of goods and our buildup and our profit margins and all these things. So it's us as the experts of our own business. Let's hope we're experts of our own business and understand the cost, right? That understand the cost and everything that goes into it. So we're a profitable business, profit first, great book. So that's where we get to be creative, right? Okay, man, so you used to be able to buy 100 of these shirts at this price. As you're aware, things have gone a little to the left or to the right, depending on your point of view. So this is what it needs to be now, right? Is this something that's workable for you? Don't forget, as business owners, we still have the ability to have the conversation. And it's our clients that appreciate, it's the conversation portion that they appreciate. They don't want to feel left behind. They want to feel included. And like, we still love them and we have their best interest in heart, all of which we do. So I call it an appreciation of perspective, right? So Molly talks about how she phrases it is, I like to meet people where they are. Right. And so let me know what's going on in your business, man. Oh, well, Z, the reason why I'm giving you such a hard time is because now, instead of having typical 30-day terms, my contracts are now 60-day terms. Okay, fantastic. So now I understand your piece. How can we make these two pieces come together? It literally requires the want to understand what's going on both sides and saying, I think that I can come up with options. We need more options, not less options.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
Transparency has been a big thing, a big buzzword for a really long time. And this is one of those times in space where we really get to see people put who walks their talk, right?
For sure. Yeah, I had a conversation with my, marketing team about, pulling all the social media down, reworking the content calendar, changing the verbiage on things, and not trying to be salesy, but like speak from the heart, right? Because I am the brand in a lot of ways, and I always speak from my heart all the time, whether people like it or not, right? So my social media needs to reflect that as well. Like, hey, this is a tough time right now. Things have changed. The world is on its axis. Like, I'm not just going to pretend that it's not happening, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to change my services or my offerings or my price points. It just means I need to change how I communicate them so that people get it.
Right.
Well, are you kidding? I'm pretty sure.
Because
go ahead, Z.
Well, ultimately, one of the things I've been telling people too is that at the end of the day, this will pass, and when this passes, we want our businesses to still be there. You want your small, but you don't COVID to pass and buy earrings from anybody anymore, or you can't get services from anybody anymore. And so we have to make sure that we're being considerate of what that looks like, rather than bashing people for making sure that they're still existing and that they're still running their business.
Well, and how would you feel, right? So one, you're a past client of somebody and you bought into them heart and soul. And now what you see is that they're cutting rates this way and that way. Would you feel great about the fact that you ever worked with them? Right? Am I a person who, like, how are you making all your past clients feel? Are they thinking, oh, I love that you did that for these people? Right? Or, oh my gosh, what a shyster. I can't believe I paid that for that $10. I can't believe I paid that $10. It turns out I should have paid $3.
Right.
Right. What a crappy human. It has to do with consistency. Molly, you're talking about my brand has to stay the same, right? I have to talk about these times, but I still have to run this business. I don't think I've changed as a business owner or really as a person through this whole thing. My core values, my core beliefs are positivity and integrity and fun. And I think that there's still a place, like I'm still that human. And I think when I look at the world today, those things are still necessary in my world. Right? So why am I going to look to change that or zhuzh it? I'm still going to look for solutions. I'm still going to want to make things work. I'm still going to want to help.
Right.
All of those are still viable. And all of the businesses that we work with, look, there are corporations right now that are, the CEOs, we're talking about multi-million-dollar companies that are taking pay cuts and also asking their employees, okay, so look, I'm taking a 65% cut. And I've agreed to do it for this long, and I'm happy to do that for the company because then I can make sure you guys get paid. But when we take a look at the math, I can only do that if you take a 25% cut. Can we all put our hands in the huddle and say, go team?
Right.
Like, how sexy is that?
Right.
Why aren't we talking about that more?
That's so true.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in it together, right? So we should be all in the same boat. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning who has like 170 employees, and his payroll is like $350,000 a month.
Go him, first of all.
Ooh, okay.
But 300, for them to continue to pay their staff without any dollars coming in doesn't make sense.
No.
You know what I mean? And so
you gotta get creative.
Right. And then, depending on what state you're in, some of these loans aren't going to be forgiven. Some are, and they're being really mushy about all that. And so he's like, am I really going to take out a loan for $1 million and then potentially have to pay it back? And then other people are going to get bailout. What a crazy time. But I think that's a really valid point. It's like, hey man, we all got to pare down. Like we all got to just bring it in. And at the same time, some people are getting breaks on their rent and breaks on their mortgage. And he brought up a really good point too. He said, instead of being so worried about where the money is coming from, maybe shift your focus and figure out who's asking you for money and have conversations with them too, right? Because if your landlord's asking you for money, but their mortgage has been put off, then why are they asking you for money?
Absolutely. And you should feel comfortable asking those questions now, right? I think as, we've gotten into this big, technologically, I can get this. So immediate gratification place, right? We've forgotten to be like, okay, man, can I ask why you're asking me? we're allowed to ask questions. And if we're
Right.
doing our jobs as humans or as salespeople or as business owners, then we're asking more questions than the average bear. Because, and it's not to pry, it's really to create the best solution and be able to say, okay, great, you can ask me these questions too, right? If I'm the renter in the situation, go ahead and ask me how my job's doing. Go ahead and ask
Right.
me if I'm getting my paycheck, right? I may not just go ahead and tell you, look, I've been laid off. I don't have any qualifications to be able to get assistance. I may not volunteer that, but if you ask me, I might know that you care. And so maybe we can work this out. So please ask me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's hard because a lot of these companies, you know, like you have to lay people off because you want to put them in a position to get unemployment. And I think that
Right.
a lot of times, you know, the companies get villainized for really doing what is the best thing
Yes.
for the people that they have employed. And it's a hard decision to have to make when you're not a person, a huge, you know, $billion CEO that can just afford to keep everybody and everything afloat. You know, like
Right.
we have assistants, we have people we hire, and it's difficult. You know, I know that they feed their kids and, you know, they do different things that we support that, you know, we might not have the means to support anymore. And it's a very difficult decision and a very difficult position to be put in. I think the main hope is that at the end of everything, people will have jobs that they'll come back to. And so it's
Right.
getting through the point where, you know, okay, you're not getting your check right now. When you come back, I still want you to be here with me.
100%.
I think so too. What I have to say to that is that, like, hope isn't a strategy. So I don't think it's, we need hope. I'm a big believer in hope. I have lots of it every day. But as the laid off employed person, as the employee, getting unemployment and then hoping that your company can even come back online, not a winning strategy. Nobody has any idea what that's going to look like.
Very true.
Right. In the big picture. So instead of waiting and hoping, what are you going to do in the interim? Right. And this has everything to do with everything, not even just the job conversation, but how do you keep yourself agile? How are you keeping yourself, your soul fed? And in addition to, like, your body, right? This is literally a time when we're like having to hunker down and only use one square instead of 5, you know, where we have this.
Not me. I'm just living it up like there's no tomorrow. I'm just doing the multiple.
You know what?
I got lost.
Sorry, I brought it
at
up.
Costco too.
Right. I'm like, sorry, I brought it up. I feel this is going down the drain a little.
Oh, bump. I need some sound effects for these things. Katie Nelson.
Hey man, humor gets me through. And then on the employer side, it's the same thing. You can't wait, right? This is the time to get creative, create your contingency plans. What can it look like when you get back? Where are the places you could cut back? Because hindsight's 2020. So if you're taking a look back over your shoulder, you're seeing all of the places where the money was literally bleeding out of your brick and mortar, and you have the opportunity to fix it and improve on it now.
Yeah.
Right. So
take control.
Yeah.
Take control.
It's a chance for a lot of small businesses, I think, to go ahead and transition fully into the age of technology and think about what are some of the other ways and other options to keep your business going. And in that way, I think it's a beautiful thing that's happening in that way. I think a lot of people will be able to move forward, will be able to think about the value that they have with, like, their social networks and who they've collected. I think a lot of industries are really going to be greatly impacted and empowered, particularly like artists and musicians, for example, I think can be greatly empowered by this kind of shift in dynamic.
Absolutely. I think, to your point, Z, before the transition, I think this is really an opportunity. You know, as CEOs, one of the things we always try to prioritize is continual education of ourselves so that we can be doing it better. If that happened to be the thing that fell to the bottom of the to-do list, now is a really good time to blow off that, you know, the dust, and start to educate yourself on, if I can see that transitioning to a more digital world is helpful, which way is going to be the most helpful for me in my small business, because it won't be the same for everybody. So, transition smartly, educate yourself on what that looks like for you and your business. I think it's a great opportunity, to your point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, luckily I've been in a position where a lot of my offerings are already digital. So for me, it's just like getting my head together and knowing which thing to do first and where to put my energy and my efforts so that I'm not wasting them. Because it's like you said, hindsight is 2020, and I don't want to look back and be like, why the hell didn't I
So Molly, let
insert
me ask you a
whatever,
question. So what a great point. So what I just heard you say is that right now, Katie, I may be in a position to have an overabundance of opportunity, and just like an underabundance of opportunity and prioritizing the appropriate things to do when, my overabundance of opportunity provides me with the same questions. Like, so how do you decide and then not beat yourself up? I think that whoever's listening might like to know, like, good, wonderful. There's still a place in the world where there's an abundance of opportunity. Let's just give that a round of applause. Thank you very much. Yay. So that's the thing. And then still going on, still happening. And then two, what does that problem look like? How do you stay focused? How do you keep out of the noise to make the right decisions for your business in these times? Because if you did scatter all over the place, Heartcast Media might get lost.
Right.
So what tools are you using to stay focused on the right things?
Well, for me personally, it's like determining. I mean, I've been doing this with like my to-do list, right? I read a lot of books last year, and they were talking about in business, like always take the most direct path to the money and like prioritizing your to-do list every day. Because I know I've been guilty of like writing a to-do list and then doing the most like innocuous dumb shit that's not going to impact anything just so I can check it off my list. And then the 3 emails that maybe I didn't want to send because they were uncomfortable, but that's where the clients were, like I didn't do, right? So I've done a lot of that, like retooling over the last year and just really prioritizing. And instead of being into checking off boxes saying, I only really need to accomplish 3 things today, right? They just need to be the right 3 things. So they get me closer to my goals. And so I think like now it's like, okay, what's going to keep your business going? What's going to keep your staff? Like, how many staff members do you have? Like, do you really need them all? How do you create products and services that are going to still serve them? How does it not stray too far from what you're doing? Right? Like, I don't want to start like selling like makeup or so, you know what I mean? Like that has nothing to do with Heartcast Media, right? Like I don't want to stray so far outside, like
or your brand, really.
Right, for sure. So, but I'm just saying, a lot of people are doing that right now. A lot of people are like, "What can I do? What can I sell?" And it's like, well, that's not your industry. Why are you trying to do that? Like that doesn't really make any sense, right? And I think a lot of people are just scrambling right now to do something. And I mean, people used to do this to me all the time with One Love because they would, even now, a little bit less now, but they see that like when I set myself like out to accomplish something, I do, right? Like I'm a principle over circumstance kind of girl, and I get shit done. And so then people are always telling me, "Oh, Molly, you know what you should do? You should start an art gallery." I'm like, "No, I shouldn't." "Oh, Molly, you know what you should do? You should sell." And I'm like, "No, please stop giving me jobs, y'all." Just because I'm good at organizing these things doesn't mean that I want to. Doesn't mean that lines up with my goals. It doesn't mean, you know what I mean? Like, you should do it then. You know what I'm saying? If you think it's such a great idea, why don't you do it, right? So I think there's people that, and we've talked about this before, just as an entrepreneur, sometimes that, you feel like you're in the jungle and you're just running through, and then it's like you come up on like the first obstacle, it's your website. Okay, knock that out. All right, next one, social media. All right, boom, supply chain, right? And you're just running through the woods and you're stressed out and you're knocking shit out as it comes, and then at the end of the year you're like, I'm fucking exhausted and I'm not sure that I accomplished anything. Like
hold on a second.
So hard.
Do I have a client? Did I get a client? Right? You're in this jungle. You did all these things. Your to-do list is all checked off.
But meanwhile, you didn't actually accomplish anything that got you closer to your goals, right? So I think it's the same thing right now where people have to kind of just like simmer down, biscuit, reel it in, like figure out what your core values are. Like don't just stray so far. Don't panic, right? That's the first thing. Don't panic. And then really
Mhm.
factor what's going to be best for your staff, for your family, and then how does that fit in with your why and with your brand, and how does that all kind of come out in the wash so that it makes sense at the end of the day? Because at some point, this will be over.
This too shall pass, as they say.
Indeed.
Yes. Right. So I would say, and it was actually a conversation that I had with you that would make me say this, but I would say go ahead and panic. It's fine. I think at some point in time, all of this is going to bubble over for all of us. It is a very unnatural scenario we find ourselves in as a social being, right? Even introverts. Have you heard from your introvert friends? Now I'm pretty sure they're like, oh my gosh, I hate this too. I thought this was going to be amazing, but now it's awful. I want to be an extrovert now. I miss people. So go ahead and panic. Just don't do anything with your panic, right? Just don't make any actions about your business. Understand what it is, accept it for what it is, forgive yourself for what it is, love yourself anyway for freaking out about it.
Right. Don't cut bangs.
Yes.
Yeah, don't cut bangs. That
Right.
TikTok girl. Look, I've only seen one thing from a TikTok, and it happened to be that one where those girls were dancing and she cut her friend's hair. Oh my gosh, it was awful.
You're on TikTok now?
No, I'm not on TikTok now. I found it on Facebook. You would know better. No, I'm not on TikTok. I don't even know how to log into that.
I was gonna say you don't even know how to open TikTok on your. You don't even know how to TikTok.
No, girl, that's not me. It was on Facebook. I don't even know if I'm on TikTok.
My oldest keeps trying to embarrass me on TikTok, and I'm just like, no. I told her I'm going to employ videos for me because TikTok is like the thing for people her age. And so clearly I'm officially that old generation that doesn't get the new technology. I'm like, my phone all close. Like, what am I supposed to be doing with this? And finally, I'm just like, here, make me a commercial on TikTok. And if it's good, I'll let my friends know and they can pay you. But I can't.
That's so funny. That's how I feel about Snapchat. Like I'm too old to even understand Snapchat, because I remember the first time I tried to send a message on there, or make a post or whatever, and I was like sending it individually to people. I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like, this is so much work. And then I'm like, oh my God, I've turned into my mother. And that was Snapchat. So that was a couple years ago, which is crazy because I'm like pretty technologically savvy, but not when it comes to Snapchat. Apparently is where I cap out.
Girl, I didn't even download it.
I was like, how do I get friends on this thing? And shaking the phone up, and my daughter's just like,
yeah, no, I'm that 40 something that, a couple of years ago when she finally joined Twitter and it said somebody was following you, I turned around. I was literally that person. It happened in a nail salon. I was really ooged out. I've gotten over it since then.
I got one for you that's even better. So my mom sews. My mom has all this fabric and stuff, as I mentioned. And so there's all these groups on Facebook, and a good friend of mine sews as well. So I added my mom to this group on Facebook, and then I sent a message to my friend and my mom because I was like, hey, Mom, maybe. So a day went by and my mom didn't say anything. So I called her up and I was talking to her. I was like, hey, did you see, I added you to the group. She's like, well, I don't know what a group is. What is a group? What is this thing you talk about? So I was like, well, check your notifications. She's like, I don't have notifications. I said, Mom, how do you move around Facebook? And she says, I open it and I read. And when I see something that I like, I take out my camera and I take a picture of it. And just the idea of my mom breaking out her Canon to take pictures of her iPad is the best fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. And you're like, okay, so I got her hip to the world of notifications the other day, which I just we're all doing the best that we can, but at least you're not taking pictures.
You're talking about your mom on a camera. So my mom had to introduce me to Marco Polo.
Well, Marco Polo. Do you know about Marco Polo, Z?
No, what is that?
It's a good one. It's a good one. We'll have to add
I was
you.
going to say, I'm the one who brought Molly into the fold, and the only reason she's there now is because of my mother, who has a group of girlfriends that were in a book club, and they didn't live in the same town. And so because they're teachers, they know about Marco Polo, and they introduced my mother to it. And she's like, why aren't you just sending me Marco Polos? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so now I do.
It's like a video message,
message in a bottle.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, honestly, for sure.
Well, and what I like is that it'll keep it all so that you can actually go through, if you have it as a touch point for your older folk, right? My parents used to live in the same town as me, so I actually have years worth of little blips from them to say hi.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool. Well, ladies, we're gonna wrap this up in just a minute because it's been an hour and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But I want to end with each one of you giving people a tip to stay productive or something that they could. Actually, maybe I should be a little more specific. Katie, if you could give people like a suggestion as a salesperson, like from your lane, like what's the best advice that you would give people right now who are kind of like, what the hell should I do next? Like from your sales uprising CEO's desk, what do you got for them?
100%. Just because we all feel like everything is going down the toilet, no pun intended, that doesn't mean that it is. As a business owner, I need you to 100% stay strong in everything that you are. The value and expertise, the way that you delivered you before this whole thing is still important. And probably more important now than it ever has been. Entrepreneurs and CEOs are a very specific brand of people. We all take big, huge chances and we put ourselves out there on the daily. So if you don't have a feeling that you're worth anything anymore or that this isn't valued anymore, hit me up somewhere. Facebook, all the things. Molly will tell you where.
Slide into her
right.
DMs.
Whatever you do, don't send me a thing on TikTok, obviously. But if that's even done that way, I don't know. But no, it's just not that way. Like, find your support group. We are out here. We're all doing the thing every day, and you're still needed. So if it's just a question of pricing, don't worry about it. You're still amazing, and you still have purpose here.
Amazing. And then can you tell everybody about your event that's coming up?
Oh, yes, I can. I can because it's virtual now. One of the opportunities that I get to do is I had a live event planned for April 24th at 9 a.m. It used to be in a location. Now it's going to be on your computer. You can go to bit.ly/SMTM2020 to go find it. And for entrepreneurs who are looking to package their services in an appropriate way and be able to leverage their time, that's what this workshop is all about. So
for sure.
come see me. Come visit me.
I'll put the link in the description when the show is over. I'll update everything. So I'll put all y'all's links in there too, for sure. All right. And so Z, whoops, I just put it on the wrong screen. Hold on. It's really hard to run the show and the cameras.
You're doing great.
Be present.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies.
You're a rock star.
Thank you. So Z, why don't you tell us, like, coming from, you're a business owner, but you're also a mother who's homeschooling her children. And I'm sure some parents would love a couple like tidbits from you on the parenting side. And if you have any advice you want to give people as a business owner and maybe even more specifically as an artist right now.
Well, yes. I think I definitely want to speak to artists and because our whole image changed. And, really understanding the power of your virtual world and taking good pictures of your art and good videos and good pictures of what you're doing and utilizing your own collectors at this point is going to be key. I think that we're about to distance from a gallery represented style of selling art. And so it's a good time thinking about your content and your social media content and how across the board you're attracting people who want to be a part of your social media. And because those are the people who are going to buy things from you at this point. We're not anymore counting on somebody coming to the gallery to walk through and say, I want that one and that one and that one. Now you have Instagram gallery, Facebook as your gallery, and all of these different ways that you need to communicate with people. And I think figuring out a way to communicate with people and then get them to stay with you is one of the key things for artists right now. Think about, how do I get people to subscribe to my website? How do I get people to follow me on my social media? With that way that algorithms work, how do I shift the algorithm so I'm engaging with new people and then transitioning them into staying with me and buying with me? How do I get people to buy from me more than one time? You know, if I have
Mm-hmm.
somebody who spends 100 on a painting, how do I get them to come back and buy something else next month? Even if they're not spending $1,500 every time, how do I get people to stay with me? Is I
Mm-hmm.
think the biggest artist question. And you know, I think across the board, I would tell people my life motto is stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Boom.
And you know, so think about what's coming in the future. You know, think about with schools. You know, I know like the news, for example, about how coronavirus might have a resurgence in the fall and winter season. And so, you know, thinking about, are you putting your kids back in school? Are you contemplating what does a new version of school look like? What does it look like when I'm at home working and my kids are at home going to school too? And starting to think at least 6 months in advance on how you can maybe start to shift things right now so that you could be prepared. Because when winter months hit and the kids are stuck at home,
Right. You can't even go outside anymore at that point.
all
Right.
right.
For sure. That's a really valid point to like not, get so comfortable to think that this might not happen again next year, or this might just be. I mean, we've been talking about for a long time that the school system in America needs to change. So maybe this is the catalyst for that, because it's just, kind of a mess. It'll be interesting to see what happens with charter schools and those conversations and how that impacts all of this. So, yeah, I think that's a really smart bit of advice, is to just like be prepared and plan for a lot of months out, right? Talking with some friends of mine, my friend Amy came by yesterday and she works at the State Department. And so she's really knowledgeable about she's just really smart and really level headed, I don't know why she hangs out with me, honestly, but she was just saying like, just settle into it. And, it might be August before we can come outside of our houses again. And you know what? You should just be cool with that. Just accept that, right? It is what it is. And then if we can go out in May, then like party on, Wayne, right? Like that's awesome. But like set yourself up in a way that's not going to really disappoint you later if it doesn't go down the way that you wanted it to. Because I think if there's anything that we've learned is that nothing except for ourselves and our behavior is in our control at this point.
Well, what a beautiful time to learn internal fortitude.
I like that. Internal I wish I had a graphic to put up. Internal fortitude.
I did that. What a weird graphic.
What
is
would
that going to look like?
I don't know. A bottle of wine.
Okay. I would call that external fortitude,
Yes.
but okay. At least until I drink it, and then
the
I
little
guess
column A, little column B,
Right. But no, I mean, it's a great, we never thought it was going to be something we needed, or maybe there were just people that were born with it or whatever, but continuing our human education, great time to do it now. We've got all this time on our hands. Clean out your closets, your
build
attic.
An online course.
Right. To build an online course. If you don't feel like you have anything to say or a current passion, go find it so that you can build an online course later. Right?
Or
yes.
if you don't have time to build a course, but you're good at sales, partner with somebody who is making courses and you believe in, and say, I'll sell that shit for you. I want 40% commission.
Please, everybody who just heard Molly say that, please listen to what she said. Believe in the thing first, but definitely make the call. Right? Definitely make the call. Get creative. What do you got to lose? Now
Actually,
really.
Yeah, that's actually like a really good idea, right? Like if you're not somebody that's a creator, but you're a good salesperson, find some people who still have products and negotiate a commission structure, because we need help selling. You need money coming in. Everybody wins, right? So instead of looking to an employer, why don't you look to somebody in your community who's doing stuff that you get down with, and then support them in their journey and support yourself at the same time? Because we're all entrepreneurs. We're all, wave makers and visionaries and creatives, right? But not everybody is, but we need them, right? And they need us, right?
If you were from a big company and you just got laid off, but you were in their marketing department, get to know your local people in your community. You can't meet them, out in person right now, but go find them online. To Z's point, go check them out on their social media. See if your views align with theirs. Go see if you want to potentially, kick them some work for a while, whether if they've got the ability to pay you.
Exactly.
Yes.
We all need something.
For sure.
And it's a great time. It's a great time to learn how to do something as well. You know,
Right.
I bought a class from a lady on Teachable. It was $150, and it was, you know, solder. So I learned how to solder. I learned how to make rings, and bada bing, now I have something to sell. And so, you know, really thinking about self-development during this time and personal development, because we're in an era where you just have access to so much information and so many resources and so many tools. It's, you know, it's a good time to study something that you've been thinking about doing or you've always wanted to do. And that even includes like the boring stuff like business. Write this plan during this time.
Sorry.
Write a grant. Learn how to write grants. You
Girl,
know, like,
I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. You
boring.
Just said business is boring. Like, I don't know what you mean. But no. So it's a self-renaissance. We've never had time since we were kids, right? Your kids, parents provide time for kids to be creative and have imagination time and all of these wonderful things. But adults very rarely get it unless they already like plan for it and make sure, or those kinds of humans anyway. So for those of us that, you know, brush off your old cross stitch or your coloring books or your, you know, that you wanted to learn how to do calligraphy, you know, whatever it is, go learn a new thing, go learn about a new thing, go learn about a new culture, listen to Rosetta Stone, teach yourself an entire language. You've got time,
learn
right?
a language.
So many things.
Grow that resume.
Learn an instrument, you know.
Boom. There you go. There you go. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. This is a great conversation. And I will put all of your links in there. So make sure when we disconnect that you guys send me like any links that you want. Like Z, definitely send me your store links, like especially if there's particular items and, you know, that you really want to push, send me those links. I'll put it all in the description. I have no doubt that from listening or watching this conversation that people will be compelled to support us in our business endeavors. Oh, and before I forget, I had an idea about creating a virtual art gallery, but in a way that would be super sexy and really unique, and people could buy on. I have an idea about that. That's not just post on Instagram. So I would love to chat with you a little bit about that.
That's fun. So look, Molly, I'm totally going to jump on your back. But Z, before you go, if you're really interested, I actually have probably more ideas than you can throw a stick at about answering all of your artists' questions regarding how do I get them to buy? How do I get them to buy again? What does that look like for me? All of that stuff, girl.
Yeah. Katie's amazing. She's a good
Yes,
egg.
yes.
She's a good egg.
And artists you have to invest in that. Getting that information is everything. I know in some of my most struggling times, I spent a bunch of money. I hired a branding expert and a PR person, and it changed my entire business. And just the amount of information, and it really opened up a whole different avenue. And so I definitely advise people, talk to somebody who knows what they're doing. If they say they're going to just talk with you for free, cash app them $50 for their time. And, you know, since you can't take them out to lunch, cash app them a little bit of money for time and, you know, get some expertise and some ideas. Because art is a business too. And I think that's the scariest thing that I've realized is I had posted a little while back about filing my taxes, and people were like, well, what do you file taxes for? And I was like, art, dummies. Like, what do you guys think I sit online all day posting all this stuff for? And
You're
people
going
are
to make
like, I didn't know art was a
girl.
job. And it's like, what do you mean you guys didn't know art was a job? You didn't know you could file tax? And people were just like, they were mind blown. They had no idea. To me, that was such a basic thing. Like, I sold it, I'm going to claim it on my taxes. Like,
they just thought that Jackson Pollock was a celebrity.
Yeah, they think this is fun, you know, like, oh, it's so fun to have a basement painting stacked up wall to wall. Like, no, no, I need to, this is how I'm eating. No, I don't want to go work someplace that I don't want to be in and come home and paint as a hobby. You know, no, I'm trying to pay bills this way. And, you know, getting artists to really understand, like, yes, please seek some expertise. Sit down with somebody who knows things about business, because, you know, I know all artists are not necessarily business minded, but just sit down with somebody
not
who
all
does
business owners are business minded. It's
okay. Right. And you have to get the help, you know.
Business is not innate. It has to be a learned thing. You have to want it. You have to want it.
Yeah, people used to ask me sometimes, they'd say, so outside of One Love Massive, what is your real job? Like having a 3-story building and managing 160 artists wasn't enough work. Like, oh, I just do that
Stop.
after my job at the bank. Like, what are you fucking talking about? My real job. Yeah, that was always my favorite. I was like, well,
Yes. How do you pay bills is the number one question I get asked. And I'm just like,
Through art. I hope you say through art.
yeah. Well, now they know that they can support all of us in various ways, which we will provide in the description below. So thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate you joining us on this journey and listening to us talk every day. I appreciate all your support. Thank you for all the Heartcast Media people out there. We're going to re-release all of the live streams that we did at One Love Massive 2 years ago. We have over 85 recordings of go-go bands and local artists that we are going to be putting out daily, just to remind you that I not only am I the podcast queen, but I'm the queen of the stream. I came up with that this morning while I was making my coffee. But for real, we streamed so many things. Y'all didn't appreciate it as much when it was happening, but you might appreciate them a little bit more now that your ass is at home and you can't go nowhere. So thank you all for the support. I appreciate everything, and we will see you again tomorrow. Well, no, actually not tomorrow. I get the weekend off, but I'll be back Monday with a new set of guests. So please like, subscribe, share, all that noise. But hopefully this provided you a little bit of sunshine today. And now go outside and get some fresh air, and we'll catch you on Monday. Thanks, y'all.